Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are diving deep into a truly fascinating Vedic text. What's so amazing about it is that it lays out this incredibly detailed blueprint for how the universe works. We're going to explore its explanation for, well, everything, from the very first vibration of a single particle all the way up to the massive repeating cycle of cosmic creation and destruction. It is an absolutely mind-bending look at a highly structured worldview.
So, let's kick things off with the biggest question of them all, right? In a completely still and silent universe, where does movement even begin? How does that first stir of life, that first vibration actually happen?
Okay, so let's get into it. The text starts not with galaxies or stars, but at the tiniest, most fundamental level you can imagine, with individual particles. It suggests that the entire cosmic dance gets its start from a pair of primal forces that have to work together.
So that very first flicker of movement, it's apparently driven by two forces in partnership. First up, you've got prana. The text describes this as the force that kind of surrounds a particle and gives it that initial nudge, that first push to get it going. But, a simple push isn't enough. It needs a partner, and that's udana. Udana comes in with this upward empowering thrust that turns that little nudge into real, powerful, sustained motion.
But here's the thing. The real key is that they're a team. The text is super clear about this. Prana can't create any kind of powerful movement without udana. And on the flip side, udana has nothing to empower if prana doesn't start things off. They absolutely must work together in the very same space for the universe to really spring into action.
All right, so now our particles are moving. The next logical question is what happens when they start bumping into each other? And this is where the text gets really interesting because it actually presents a kind of cosmic debate. First, the text brings up what it calls a common misconception. It says some scholars believe that when two particles combine, they basically just merge into one. They lose their individual identities, their original properties, and become something new entirely. You can think of it like two different colored drops of water mixing together to become a single new color.
But then, and this is so direct, the text immediately and forcefully rejects that idea. It doesn't just disagree, it flat out calls this viewpoint the result of ignorance. This is a really strong way of setting the stage for what the text believes is the actual, deeper truth.
So here's the crucial point, what the text is really getting at. It's proposing this sort of law of conservation of identity. It argues that a particle's fundamental nature, its mulgun, is eternal and unchangeable. Sure, it might look different when it's part of a bigger structure, but, and this is key, if those particles ever get separated, they will instantly snap back to their original individual states. Nothing is ever truly lost.
So how is this identity preserved? Well, through another pair of balanced forces. Prana, that same force that gets things moving, actually does double duty here as the force of attraction, pulling particles toward each other. But it's perfectly counterbalanced by apana, which is a force of repulsion. Apana makes sure they maintain just the right amount of distance. It keeps them from crashing into each other and losing their integrity. It's basically a cosmic rule for personal space.
Okay, so we have this beautiful, elegant dance happening at the particle level. But how does this scale up to become the structure of the entire cosmos? I mean, what holds all of this together?
Well, the text uses this really powerful and beautiful analogy to explain it. It says the entire order of creation is held together by a principle called aditi, and it acts just like a knot in a rope. It's that central point that secures the whole thing and stops it from ever unraveling.
So what exactly is aditi? It's described as the fundamental nature of matter itself, the primordial state of being. It's both the starting line and the finish line. The entire universe emerges from aditi, and at the very end of its long cycle, everything dissolves right back into aditi, which ensures the whole process is a perfect, continuous, unbreakable loop.
And this whole incredible process unfolds in 4 clear stages. It all begins with the Mool Prakriti, right? That's the fundamental nature we just called aditi. From that state, srishti, or creation, happens. That creation then leads to vistar, which is expansion, and finally, the cycle ends with pralay, dissolution, where everything returns to that fundamental state, all ready to kick off the entire process once again.
So, after going through all of these forces and principles and cosmic cycles, what's the big picture? What's the grand takeaway from a universe that's built this way?
The conclusion that text reaches is, well, it's pretty profound and definitive. This is not a universe that operates on random chance or chaos. According to this blueprint, every single process, from the first spark of motion in a particle to the final dissolution of the cosmos, follows a precise, regulated, and perfectly orderly path.
So let's just pull these core ideas together for a second. First, the universe is a deliberate system. Creation and dissolution aren't just accidents, they're orderly processes. Second, all this motion is ultimately guided by what the text calls a conscious entity, and that leads to this really powerful idea. What might look like randomness to us isn't real chaos at all. It's simply the limit of our own human understanding. And finally, this whole grand cycle, it's said to have a purpose, the welfare of all souls.
And that really leaves us with a fascinating thought to chew on, doesn't it? If the deep, fundamental laws of the universe are this structured, is it possible that what we call chaos is just a complex pattern that we haven't learned how to read yet? Thanks for joining me.